Good morning. President Kumar, Provost Jenko, Board of Trustees Chair Maslow, Board of Trustees, faculty, friends, family, and distinguished guests. Thank you for the privilege of receiving an honorary degree along with Terry Lynn Carrington and David Walk, whose accomplishments far outshine mine, and for the honor of addressing the fabulous graduating classes of 2026. My wife, Andrea, is a Tufts alumna. And she has made it abundantly clear to me that Tufts graduates have superior traits and qualities: curiosity, caring, purpose, and a stubborn belief that they can make the world a better place. She also assures me that for the last 40 years, I have been living with incontrovertible proof of how extraordinary Tufts graduates are. Her, of course. So I come to you today not as a stranger, but as someone who has had a front row seat to what a Tufts education produces, and now I am thrilled to have my own Tufts degree. So in a short while, you'll move your tassel from one side to the other, and someone will hand you a piece of paper that represents years of sacrifice, late nights, and the good and not so good times you've had here while at Tufts. And then almost immediately, the world will ask you, what are you going to do next? I want to suggest that before you answer that question, before you tell them about the great job, the grad school, the startup, the gap year, you sit with a different set of questions. Not what are you going to do next, but where do you want to go with your life? How can you ensure that your life has true meaning? Ultimately, who and what are you here to serve? I'd like to tell you where I came from because I believe it's relevant to what I want to leave you with today. As President Kumar said, I was born and raised in the inner city of Philadelphia. Go Birds. While we were economically disadvantaged, my parents raised us in a home where faith and education were the paramount values. My mother died unexpectedly when I was 12, and my father raised me and my siblings on his own, working overtime as a janitor to put food on the table and a roof over our heads. I've also been the recipient of uncommon opportunities. Back in the early 1960s, the social engineers in Philadelphia experimented with a program that sent a small number of black children from the inner city to higher quality schools. Starting in grade school, my younger sister, who grew up to be a concert pianist, and I were among a handful of kids who rode a bus across town to a different and better school. And while I strongly objected at the time, I later realized that riding those buses every day allowed me to receive a much more rigorous education than my older siblings. No one can convince me, though, that as an 8-year-old, I merited a better education than my siblings. I know that I was extraordinarily lucky. I went from being educationally disadvantaged to educationally advantaged, setting me on a path that eventually led to Harvard Law School, where I graduated in 1978. Back then, our country was grappling with huge economic and geopolitical challenges. In 1979, the Iranian Revolution led to a protracted standoff with 52 Americans held hostage for more than a year. Gas prices were through the roof. So was inflation. Does that start to sound familiar? American jobs were disappearing as companies saw outsourcing and offshoring as the road to higher profitability. For new graduates like me, good jobs were not easy to find, and we worried that if we were fortunate enough to get such a position, layoffs were right around the corner. I imagine some of you have similar worries, further compounded by the constant drumbeat of headlines warning that artificial intelligence will disrupt or eliminate jobs and may eventually replace us as humans altogether. I work with General Catalyst, an investment company that is in the middle of the AI race, and while there's no doubt that AI, machine learning, and robotics will raise productivity and lower costs, I can assure you that there is an important role for Tufts graduates like you. When I was at Merck, we developed Keytruda, one of the most powerful and versatile cancer-fighting medicines. Developing a game-changing new drug involves countless choices, many of which come down to educated guesses. Recently, someone fed all we knew about Keytruda's development into 2 leading AI models, and guess what they found? AI's choices were suboptimal. If Merck had followed the path recommended by AI, Keytruda would not have reached its full potential as a life-saving medicine. AI did a fine job analyzing the known data, but analysis and judgment are not the same thing. AI can make us smarter, but not necessarily wiser. Often the decisions that lead to breakthroughs require contrarian bets where someone using the human brain decides to ignore current knowledge and experience in order to make a judgment call based on good old-fashioned human intuition. Large language models cannot tell us when to take a leap of faith into the unknown or give us the courage to go against the current consensus. So yes, while AI is a powerful tool, human leadership will always be indispensable. At Tufts, you've learned how to apply reasoning, empathy, and judgment to the hardest problems we face as a society and as individuals. And that's important because we're going to need you. You're graduating into a society where the interface between human beings and human services is increasingly mediated by technology. Many of you will work in industries focused on automation, where the whole point is reducing friction, costs, and the need for human interaction. Now, I want to say to you carefully that there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Technology can save lives, connect the isolated, and scale meaningful solutions. But if everything we want or need to do is automated through the push of a button without real-life human interaction, we risk losing touch with one another, and we begin to forget that people on the other side of the screen are not data points. They are human beings. Some folks today dream of a frictionless future. To me, that is not a dream or an ideal, because most so-called friction comes from human interaction, from people connecting, sometimes in awkward and messy ways, and sometimes with kindness and care. And that's not friction. That's what it is to be human. I'd like to return to the questions I posed a couple of minutes ago. Where do you want to go with your life? How can you ensure that your life has true meaning? Ultimately, who are you going to serve? My journey to corporate leadership was anything but typical. I graduated law school with the intention of becoming a civil rights lawyer. And I spent years trying to perfect my craft in front of juries all over the country. One case in particular stands out. One afternoon, I got a call from a friend asking my help in representing a client on death row in Alabama, whom she believed was innocent. This man, James Willie Bo Cochran, was charged with killing the owner of a grocery store and was given an execution date scheduled for a few weeks later. I thought and I prayed about it. I wanted to say no. Andre and I had just had our first child. I was very busy, and quite frankly, I was hesitant to get involved because if Bo ended up getting executed unjustly, then not only would I look bad for failing, but I would undoubtedly feel responsible for this man's life. But something inside me told me that I had to try, not least because I reasoned that no matter how bad a job I could do, I was likely to do a better job than he could do on his own behalf. And somehow that lifted my spirit. I ended up agreeing to work on the case, and 5 years later, after many hearings and with the help of others, we were able to exonerate Bo Cochran of a crime he did not commit, but for which he spent 19 years on death row. While in the middle of that case, I received an unexpected phone call from Merck, one of my business clients, asking me whether I'd ever considered going into the corporate world. Truthfully, I hadn't. I love the courtroom much too much. But my wife, you remember the powerful and all-knowing Tufts graduate, had other ideas. She urged me to give it a try, reasoning that in death penalty cases, I could spend years trying to save a single person's life, but while at Merck, we had the opportunity to save millions of lives by staying true to our mission, and she was right. Shortly after I arrived at the company, the then CEO suggested that I leave the legal department to better understand the business, which is primarily science. Again, I was hesitant. I already knew how to do this lawyer thing, but he said he saw something else in me. He said he believed that I had the abilities that I hadn't realized, and he forced me to broaden my skills beyond the comfort zone. So I joined Merck in 1992, and 19 years later, I became its CEO, the first African American to lead a major pharmaceutical company in the Fortune 500. More than the financial results, more than the headlines, what drove every decision I made during my tenure as CEO was a single belief that business exists to deliver value to society, not just to shareholders. During my tenure, Merck's stock price more than doubled, but more importantly, the company developed life-saving drugs, including Keytruda, the cancer immunotherapy we talked about earlier. So I spent a lot of my career thinking about what leadership really means. And I've drawn deeply on the work of Bill George, former CEO of Medtronic, Harvard Business School professor, and a personal mentor, who has spent decades studying what separates leaders who endure from those who flame out. He argues that every leader has a true north, an internal compass shaped by their life story, their values, their crucible moments, not the direction their parents set for them, not the direction their employer, their peer group, or their social media feed demands, but their own. You will face a dizzying array of opinions about where to take your life from well-meaning friends and family through the algorithms of social media. Rely on your human judgment and intuition to keep you firmly planted on the path to finding your true north. Be intentional about the decisions along the way, turning to your own courage and reasoning, no matter how small or inconsequential those decisions might seem at the time. The late, great baseball catcher and philosopher Yogi Berra put it this way: if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. George's message and mine to you is a clarion call. Go deeper than your resume. Understand your life story. Find your special calling, the purpose that animates you. Because if you don't, someone or something else will fill that void. And it will usually be your ego, your fears, or maybe the market. The hardest person you will ever have to lead is yourself. I found my true north not in a boardroom, but in those early experiences watching my father press our school clothes late at night, for working for a man on death row, walking into Merck's laboratories and realizing that we could take steps to make sure that our medicines and vaccines could reach more people, many of whom have been written off by the global market. My compass has always pointed me towards the people who had the least, the ones the market left behind, the ones algorithms had not been trained to see. As you go out into a world being shaped by artificial intelligence, automation platforms, and optimization engines, your task is to be the human in the room who insists on asking, who are we leaving out? Whose voice is not in the data set? Who does this efficiency serve, and who does it harm? Servant leadership in the age of technology is not about rejecting technology. It's about refusing to let technology become an excuse for not serving other humans. Until now, you've been on a well-established track. High school, college applications, standardized tests, internships, grades. Most of you have been optimizing for something, a metric, an expectation, a vision of success that someone handed to you. Now, finally, you're free of all that. I urge you to choose your own path, not the prestigious one, not the safe one, not the one your family hoped for at the dinner table, no offense, family, but the one that is yours. My father, that janitor who found himself unexpectedly raising 3 young children alone, who never once asked the world for a favor, gave me one piece of advice as I was growing up about defining myself. I've carried this advice with me to every boardroom, every courtroom, and in every moment of crisis, particularly when I found myself worrying about how I might be looking in the eyes of others. And here's what he told me. He said, Kenny, what other people think of you is none of your damn business. And then he added, and the sooner you realize that, the better off you'll be. Growing up is not about getting a degree or getting a job. Growing up is taking ownership of the question, what am I here to give? Not what can I get, not who will it impress, Not what will be safe, but what am I uniquely positioned to contribute to this world? In a few moments, you'll hear the music again. You'll stand up and this chapter of your life will close. Decades from now, no one's going to ask you your GPA. They will not be asking your starting salary or what title was printed on your first business card. They will ask, and you'll ask yourself in the quiet hours, whether you served, whether you showed up, whether you used your gifts not merely to advance yourself, but to lift others. I've been a CEO. I've sat in rooms with presidents and prime ministers. I will tell you with complete honesty, nothing I've done in those rooms has given me more satisfaction than the day Bo Cochran walked off death row as a free man. The point I'm trying to make is this. There is no small version of serving others with your whole self. It is all large. Andrea, you've taught me that Tufts graduates go out into the world to make it a better place. Class of 2026, the world needs you, and I believe that you will. Congratulations, you've earned this special moment. It's your time now to go out and serve and define the moments that will matter more. Thank you.